We are here today for another episode in our room to talk about creative instinct / creative intuition and learning to trust your intuition. First and foremost, I would like to say I had to Google the difference between instinct and intuition because to me they're used pretty interchangeably in a sentence. So an instinct is something that is instilled in you at birth. It's automatic. It is often related to like survival. So you say like you have hunting instincts, which I have loads of, and that is innate to my biology. And then intuition is a sense of knowing that develops over time via like life experience and just like learning about life and learning about how to interact with the world. So intuition is formed through nurture, and instinct is nature. Easiest way to remember that, I guess. So then I guess when we talk about this, we can say that like creative instincts are the innate human drive to create something, right? Like, why do we have, for all of Homo sapiens, evidence of art and creation beyond practical, like pottery or practical art, or functional art, rather. So instead, when you're looking at creative intuition, we're talking about a sense of knowing that we've developed over our lives. And like all things we develop over our lives, they could be infiltrated also by our lives. And our intuition can be tough to trust because we learn a lot about the world in our time here, and not all of it is 100%, none of it is 100% true. And not all of it is 100% applicable all the time. I think that's like pretty safe to say. So that makes it really, really, really hard to foster a positive relationship with your intuition because you can assume it's not always right. That's the tricky part. And where I first started, I had a lot of doubt. I had a lot of questioning in my abilities and my thinking and the things that I thought about. I think I've mentioned it on here before, but I've had in the past where for art and writing, I would tell 0% of the world that I did any of that shit. Especially writing, I was like, who? Not me. I don't do that. And then with art, I was happy to show a finished product that I was proud of, but I didn't get to show the process. And the process is important, building trust in, because it's the whole thing. Like, you're spending your time curating something or putting things together, regardless of what your medium is, what you're creating. That's how you get there. And you don't want it to be uncomfortable, and you want to be able to trust that you're going to get from point A to point B simply through just like trusting your brain and how it works. So yeah, I did not do that. I hated people watching me work. Still don't particularly like people watching me work, but I really, like, I did not work at all in class. My art teacher was pissed at me because he would say like, no, can you actually just like work on something in class instead of sitting there and yapping with your friends? And I said, no sir, I will be yapping with my friends and you will get something turned in. And I did well, like in terms of grades, but that was it. I really I did fall short in that area, and that was simply a shortcoming for myself. So yeah, that's where I started. I started in this like profound doubt in my capacity to create a work that was both meaningful to me, because that is easy, and be translated in a way that I felt was worth sharing. Yeah, I really did rely on kind of this like external validation. So I started with realism, and I was like, look at what I can do. And it's really easy to say that you do well with realism because it has to look like the thing you're doing. So if it doesn't look like that, then you did it wrong, allegedly. This is all just like my mindset. And so I was like spending a lot of time, I would share my stuff on my like personal Instagram and with my peers when I was in high school, and it would all be like realism, and I like ate that fucking validation up with a smile on my face. I was like, thank you, wow. And I let that get me to the next step, and then it would run out and I would need it again. and again and again and again and again. And external validation is fantastic and it's amazing and I love it, but it's not enough to make creation enjoyable, which is the big thing, making it enjoyable. I had to, when I was looking to make art my tool for expression again, I had a therapist say, have you ever considered like maybe creating something that doesn't look exactly like what you think it looks like? I was like, no fucking way, I never thought of that. So then I started to make some silly little doodles, and I don't mean silly in like a way to discredit them. They were just like things that were reflecting what was going on at the time. They were quick because I was in university, I didn't have a ton of time to create. It kind of stripped me of that perfectionism because I was like, hold on, like I don't have to make it look identical. It can look how my mind wants it to look. It's really, really tough because you get a lot less external validation when you show people, you. And that's not to say that it's less likable, it's less maybe palatable for a universal audience, because everyone can say what looks like what, but not everyone can interpret things the way they want them to be interpreted once you start to go into more abstract stuff. So that was a risk, and I did it anyways. Then when I was dealing with my thought process in terms of like creating work, I was making digital stuff, and like shout out to you if you've been around since the digital stuff. I was making digital stuff and I was getting bored of it, and the recession was starting to really solidify in my location, so money started to dry up, and I was like, okay, so I'm getting none of that external validation that I was getting even for my more abstract stuff. Now what? Because now like I have nothing to lose, and my biggest risk, I guess, was like losing the very small following I had on Instagram and whatever. And so when I moved to where I am now, to this art room, I had tons of space to create, and I used it and I created. And the first piece I made was this bad boy right here, Allegory of a Life Well Lived. And that's the one that I credit for any of my intuition or any of my confidence in my intuition. And that and 5 years of therapy, because that'll fucking help if you need any sense of affirmation internally. Like, that is where I found it, not in an external space, but using tools in an external space that built an internal sense of confidence in what I do. Really what it was like once I started to really, really lean into the things that I thought were maybe less likely to be appreciated. For example, that one, which is funny because I think it's actually most people's favorite of what I do, of what I've done rather. Once I did that, like the world opened up. Suddenly I received like way more attention for my work. And this is by no means like a measure of skill or success or anything like that, but it was very validating for me in that moment to have received more validation for something that was abstract and personal to me than I had in the past for something more realistic and more driven by the desire to prove skill. It didn't bring me confidence necessarily in like my ideas, because sometimes those gotta be questioned. But what it did give me is trust that I will figure it out, and that the process is for processing, and we aren't done until we say we're done. So that's what I did, and it felt honest, it felt raw, and it felt meaningful. And luckily the world, for the most part, felt the same, and I was able to just like take that and fucking run with it. But I didn't really need to do that. I could have built up a stronger sense of who I am in other ways, I'm sure. And when I say who I am, I mean who I am as a creator and what I do, and also the expectation that I will change my shit. I will. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, where I tend to change my style every couple of years. I'm really happy with where I'm at, so I don't see that happening anytime soon. But it was just funny when I was thinking about it, that this kind of instinct, not intuition, to pivot and then to trust your intuition in the process of acting on that instinct. And yeah, so shout out to 5 years of therapy, because I am pretty good with rejection. I think that it was a big barrier for me, worrying about people not liking my work, and then I didn't have a choice. Because if I wanted art to be what I needed it to be at that time, and even now, it couldn't be driven in that way. So I just set some boundaries with myself. I had to establish whose voice mattered in the process of creation, and what kind of feedback is considered constructive feedback, because some feedback is just mean and is out to hurt you. And the way to tell, in my opinion, is the intention of the feedback to improve the work, period? Is the intention of the feedback to answer a call for feedback? Is the intention of the feedback to help co-create? Any of those, I'm like, sure, yeah, you know, I truly do believe that there's little growth without connection and talking to people, and there's a lot you can do on your own, but there's a lot you can do alongside others. Saying that your voice is the only one that matters is not great, but saying that certain voices, and when I say certain voices, I don't mean that specific people, I mean certain things that are being said. So like, I don't trust the people that are in my comments saying you draw like a third grader, because the intention of that message is not to better my work, right? It's because they want to say something and for some reason they said it. But if someone said, wow, I love that, I wonder how it would look if you increase the contrast in X element, I'll go, I wonder what that would look like. And I could decide for myself, hey, you know, does that feel right? And that's the intuition. Does that feel right? Does it feel right to create with that guidance? Does it feel right when someone says something and they say the high contrast, increase the contrast in an element, and I go, nah, it doesn't feel right. That's fine. If the reason doesn't feel right, it's because you're insecure, you feel bad about yourself for receiving criticism, it's not a good enough reason not to experiment. But if you are just there to say, like, I don't know, I think if you're able to sit there and say, oh no, this is actually like a really, really, this is really positive feedback, thank you so much, and I'll think about it, and you can say like, nah, not for me, it doesn't suit my style, and that's really important too, is honoring yourself and honoring where you're at. A big part of building trust in your intuition is also trusting that your intuition is a valid feeling, not a prophecy, not a premonition. Your intuition is a guiding voice that you can listen to, and you can trust the voice as an indicator of your taste, of your intention, and really bringing it back to maybe this like awareness of what your goal is when you're creating. Is it to express a message? If so, trusting your intuition is really, really important. But if your goal there is to create a work that is more palatable to the population, you probably aren't going off of your intuition. You're probably going off of a brief study of the internet or a brief study of what you think people will like. Not to say that that's not intuitive. Some people are really, really good at reading what the public will like. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. I think what I'm trying to say overall is there's no clear-cut way of saying, like, this is how to do it, this is how to trust your intuition. It's a process of building a stronger relationship with that voice in your head that is looking for your best interest. Because there's a voice in my head that also was like, everyone's going to hate this, and they're going to tell you that you suck, and they hate you, and they hate your entire family, and you're a bad person, and I don't know, whatever your, like, catastrophic thoughts go to. There's always that voice, but that voice isn't intending on improving your experience, it's not intending on improving your work, it's not intending on bringing you to the place you need to bring or be brought to. But your intuition is inquisitive and kind, and it feels certain in a visceral way rather than like my heart is palpitating because my anxious mind has taken over for a minute. Anyway, so that's where I am now. I'm at that point where I was through therapy and through practice, I've gotten to the point where I really do trust that I can bring point A to point B. Whether or not point B is the point B in my head, that's another question that I will not address in advance. But what I'll say is that if you're looking to build your creative intuition, listen to yourself, listen to your work, explore that inquisitive voice in your head, and say to the one that's panicking in the corner, up yours. And that's a lesson on life, baby. That's it. Let me actually show you some of my old work. So here I have a portfolio. So I did shit like this when I was like 15, okay? And I was like, I'm different. This is George Harrison. I'm different. Stevie Nicks, Marilyn Monroe. I'm different. I actually read way too much about Marilyn Monroe when I was 15 or 16. Anyways, realism, and I was like, I am going to create everything identically. And I started making weird shit like this. What the hell? And I intentionally was like, I'm gonna make a cat that doesn't look like a cat, or doesn't look like a, this cat versus this cat. Very different. Anyway, I started making random shit like this. Look at it all. It's colorful and abstract and weird. The point is, take your time, get there, build the trust. All of that brought me here to these, believe it or not, to the ones on my wall, the ones that feel are emblematic of a trust that I've built with myself, especially as an artist, especially as a creator, and like very specifically as a writer, because I once again refused to tell people that I would write, and I would share it with some of my close friends, but I was embarrassed. Writing is also a little bit more personal. I can share art, especially realism. I could be like, look what I can do. And now I'm showing people the inside of my head, and it feels more comfortable because I trust that I can do so in a way that honors my boundaries, that honors my experiences, and that listens to the voice in my head that wants me to grow and learn and feel catharsis and explore the world and the experiences and the emotions that are inspiring the work. So that's it, baby. That's all I have to say. Just be inspired and listen to the inspiration. That's it.